You are listening to Healing with Haley, episode 17, Mothers. Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living our dream life. My name is Haley Kirk. I'm a life coach, mom, entrepreneur, here to show you how to be the hero of your story. Welcome, you guys. I know I'm super belated on this podcast theme, which is on mothers in light of Mother's Day this past Sunday, but lo and behold, I do it, but it might be a little late. So I have wanted to do this podcast, and I know I've been procrastinating because it's a touchy subject for me. And I'm sure for so many listeners out there, so many relationships, and relationships, right, they're messy because we're all messy humans, so it makes sense. And I really want to tell the story a little bit about my mom, my relationship with my mom, and my transformation, because I really believe that, and I tried to look it up before the podcast recording, but there was a quote I heard that learning to love what you created you is one of our greatest tasks in life. Learning to love what created you is one of our greatest tasks in life. How true and enlightening is that? Learning to love what created you. And that could be, of course, that's your mother, father, biologically, but that also extends to whatever your belief systems are. That could be the universe, that could be life, that could be God, that could be whatever your belief systems are. Because sometimes we might be angry or frustrated with our creator, right? Especially when we feel like life circumstances are just so beyond what we can bear, right? And so I really want to tell the story of my mother in an abbreviated, succinct way so that it's not a drawn-out story. So when I was in college, I was about to graduate. I was pretty serious in my relationship with my boyfriend at the time, and there was a lot of life changes, and so we had disagreements, and there was what I believed things that she shouldn't have done, right? And so I actually I told her that I was going to have some time to, like, I really needed time to be apart. And so I cut her off at that time of my life. And I believe that was maybe like 3 or 4 years where I really needed a lot of space. And in that time frame, I did a lot of therapy. And I love traditional therapy and life coaching. And so what I did, and what my therapist gave me a gold nugget, and she said, Haley, have you ever considered that maybe your mom's just doing the best that she can and the best way that she knows how? Even though the best that she knows how is unhealthy or hurtful. And I loved that. I really resented her for it at first because I felt like she had betrayed me. I felt like she was not on my side. But when she said, maybe she's just doing her best, have you ever considered that? Oh, man. That was such a great moment for me. That really opened my eyes. And I thought to myself, wow, like, I had never put myself in that frame of mind to consider her point of view, where she's coming from. And it's so interesting how much now being a mother, I get my mother a lot more. And she always would tell us this, like, once you have kids, you'll know. Anyways, so I did some therapy, and then those years later, I had my son, Israel, and that I really believe that's what really brought us back together, because she, wanted to be in his life and wanted to be a grandma. And it's been beautiful. It's been so beautiful. And when I found the work from Byron Katie and did some Judge Your Neighbor worksheets, it was really profound for me. And I'm going to actually backtrack. I remember this one time where I owned what had been done to me. It was crazy, and I'm not sure if it was like Tony Robbins or who it was that told me to be kind of like grateful for the experience that I had with my mom and just own it. Like whatever was done to me, just like own it and be grateful for it, because that's who you are now. Because of that experience, this is what led you to this. And I remember just like sitting cross-legged in my hardwood floor in my apartment complex in Utah. And you guys, it was so ethereal. I was saying out loud or in my head, I'm not too sure, but I was saying, because of you. And, at the time, I felt rejected, I felt judged, I felt not good enough. Those might have been some judgments I had of my mom at that time. I have become a woman who is so strong. I have such high standards. I don't let people treat me certain ways. I have this outcome and this outlook of life because of you. And you guys, it was such an amazing experience. Like I really felt like I was spinning like my body. I felt this just energy in my body, and it was so intense, and it felt powerful. If anything, it was like a generator. I just felt this power in my body, and it felt so surreal. It was an experience I'll never forget. And I'm not sure if this was before or after with the therapy that I had, but man, it was something I'll never forget. And it was really me just owning my experiences, owning what I felt happened to me and what judgments I had, and really just expressing gratitude. Really grateful. No matter what I considered like the abuse or the challenges, it was so healing and empowering to just own my story, own what was happening to me. So fast forward to now, Israel's born, and she's reaching out, and our relationship was just really healing and mending on its own. And I had done a lot of my own work, and at that point with my mother, I had accepted who she was, right? I had accepted that I'm not going to try and change my mom, because another gold nugget that that same therapist told me was, listen, Haley, she said, most of us are cooked turkeys. We're not going to change. It's done, it's cooking. But on the off chance that there is change, then you accept that new reality. The reality is that she's a cooked chicken, so she's not going to change, or turkey, or whatever bird she used. And I said, wow, that's actually very interesting. Yeah, people won't change unless they do. And then this also complemented very well the work of Byron Katie, who I'd found later on. And so Israel's born, and I'm having this struggle, right? Because I don't really want to open up and be vulnerable, because I'm still maybe heavily attached to my traumas with my experiences with my mom. And at the same time, I want to open up and love and let her in. And so I kind of had to do this, what my therapist called like a tea party relationship, where it was like, oh, like, how is the weather? What are the books that you're reading? It's very surface level, until there's enough evidences to show that that there's an emotional capacity or emotional safety to reveal more vulnerable things. And so that felt really good for me. That felt like a good step in the direction I was wanting to go. And we fast track a little bit, and Israel's born. He's now like a year and a half old. And I had done this practice. So before, a little bit of background, what I had started to do just on my own volition was a practice called Ho'oponopono. I hope I said that right. But essentially, it's from a Hawaiian spiritual leader. And what he did was, I might have talked about this in the podcast, but I'm going to say it again. What he was hired to do was, in Hawaii, there was this mental institution that was also a jail. And they were about to shut it down because there were people getting hurt, and it was just a hot mess, and in not a good way. Yeah, it was a terrible situation. And so what he did was this practice. It was a spiritual practice where he would grab a file of a person in the institution, and he would look through their entire story, learn more about them, and then he would say these 4 words over and over. I'm sorry. I love you. I forgive you. Thank you. And he would do that over and over and over again. And there were parts of him that were healing, and it was healing them as well. And this isn't foo-foo energy stuff, right? This can be accounted for, this institution. I'm going to try and find the story, but Tony Robbins discusses it in one of his seminars. And the practice of Ho'oponopono is a healing tool. Why? Because it allows us to go into the life of another human and be compassionate, truly compassionate and empathetic. And wow, like, of course, if I saw the world the way you see it, I would do these things. I would do those things. I understand you now. That makes sense now. When I go through your eye, when I go into your life literally, I see it. It all makes sense. And that's been my experience with Ho'oponopono. So what I decided to do was, I did it on everyone that I loved, on my friends, my family, and I kept delaying my mom because I knew that one would be really tough for me. But when I finally did it, you guys, it was transformative. And I use that word intentionally because I really had never seen my mom so clear. I had never taken the time to put myself in her world. And there were things I had never thought about. There were I could feel almost as close as I could to what she might be feeling and going through her life's experience. Even like the things she's told me. So I took what she's told me and I put that in myself to believe that and be in her for a moment. And wow, it healed me right up. And I was able to just let the past go and forgive and move forward. And so when she came, she was referencing a voice note I had given her around Christmas time. And she came to see Israel in March, this past March. And in this past December, I sent her a voice note. And I essentially did Ho'oponopono with her over a voice note. And I laid it all out. I'm sorry this and this happened. And I made it very personal and elaborated on each category. So while she was visiting me, she and I were on a kitchen table. And then she said, I really want to know, back when you had sent me that voice note, what did you want forgiveness for? Or what were you forgiving me for? And for me, a lot of emotions were coming up at that moment, because for me, I started immediately to go in defense mode. And I let her know, I said, Mom, it's in the past. I forgive you. And she's like, but I want to know what you're forgiving me for. And I said, I've told you in the past many times, this is upsetting for me that you are asking this. It's as if you are saying you have nothing to forgive, or nothing is needed to be forgiven for. And I said, I don't want to go into it. I have let it go. And she, kind of pushed a little further, and she said, no, I want to know what it is. And I said, if your intention is to heal and to learn, I will go over it again. If it's to be in defense mode, I don't want to go over it again. And so she agreed that it would be for the intents and purposes of healing. And so I regurgitated the things that I had felt were hurtful on her end. And you guys, it was intense. It was amazing. It was, I don't know if I'd say amazing, actually, but it was my insides, like my organs, or at least my muscles were tense and spasming and like twitching. It was so strange. I even felt like the lights were flickering. There was just so much energy and so much. It was just so interesting how our bodies just react to trauma. And wow, it was so interesting. And so she heard me out. I just kind of gave a synopsis of what I thought was what hurt me. And then when I was done, she did what I thought I might never receive, which she apologized. She said that she never meant to hurt me, and it was such a beautiful moment. It was so beautiful. And what was crazy is I didn't need her to say those things, because I had already given myself that emotion that she was sorry. I didn't need it, but it was so good to hear anyways. And it was so beautiful that I could even walk her through her emotions and give her the assurances that would be helpful and grateful and good to hear. And it was such a beautiful exchange and a surprise, truly a surprise. And that's when, I kind of recollect on what my therapist said. It's like, that's such a beautiful way to live life. People will be who they are until they change. And my mom had gone through her own healing journey, and she told me about all these seminars and all these groups that she's been going through. And I was just amazed. I'm like, wow, you're literally, I'm just like you. I love self-help books, events, groups, healing sessions. I love all of that. And I know that it was because of her. She would, when we were growing up, we would listen to self-help books in the car, and she instilled that in me just by being herself. And I'm really so grateful. And I know a lot of people out there, they say, like, if my mother were to die, I don't know if I'd be sad. And to that I say, decide that you will be devastated. Decide now. If you don't know, decide now that you would be devastated. And I say that because there are so many things that we are believing about our parents that just aren't true, that are blinding us from the love that was always there. That was always there. And when I listen to Byron Katie work with the community members or the people that she counsels in her work who have been abused, neglected, all these things by their parents, and they're able to come and realize the love that was there and the mistakes that were made. And she of course doesn't, condone any abuse, but it's the painful thoughts that we're believing that are keeping us victims and in pain. And I'm amazed at how you can turn something so traumatic and clear away the clouds and the funk and the uncertainty, and turn it into something more true and be more beautiful. And I'm just amazed at this work. I'm amazed at the turnarounds that people come up with, and they're all on their own, and Byron Katie's just this guide. So I should be Byron Katie's spokesperson. And yeah, I really am so grateful that I had that experience with my mom, and that I love my mom, and that we are where we are at. And I know we couldn't have been where we're at now in this peaceful, healing state had I not gone through the heartache and the hurtfulness and all the thoughts I was choosing to believe about her that were not true. And it's just been such a journey. It's been such a journey. And I wanted to share some other thoughts about this. So Iris Murdoch, she has a quote that says, "We can only learn to love by loving." I love this, but then Byron Katie takes it to the next level. She says in her book, "I Need Your Love, Is That True?" The only obstacle to loving other people is to believe what you think about them. Gold. I'm going to read it again. The only obstacle to loving other people is to believe what you think about them. Oh my goodness. I'm going to share a few more golden nuggets, about 10 or 12 more. So she says this: "Forgiveness is understanding that what I thought happened didn't. Love is what we all are. That's immovable. Love pours into your love, and there is nothing you can do about it. Love joins everything without condition. It doesn't avoid the nightmare, it looks forward to it, and then questions the thoughts." This one's my favorite. "Love wouldn't deny a breath. It wouldn't deny a grain of sand. It is totally in love with itself, and it delights in acknowledging itself in its own presence, in every way without limits. Love embraces all, everything from the murderer to the saint to the dog and the cat. Love is so vast within itself that it will burn you up. It's so vast that there's nothing you can do with it. All you can do is be it. Your life doesn't depend on children's welfare." Okay, so in this section, she's talking about a mother who is kind of telling her son, if my children died, I couldn't go on living. And so what she says in retort to that is, your life doesn't depend on your children's welfare. Oh, now as a mother, I remember reading that before and after having a child, and I'm like, wow, that hits really strong. Your life doesn't depend on their welfare. It feels that way because, I don't know if you guys knew this, but when we are pregnant, there's our gray matter in our brain, which is the smart stuff. replaced with this nurturing, keep my child alive parts, or how would you say that? Abilities, tasks, those kinds of evolutionary skills. And it's so interesting to think that if my children died, that their welfare my life doesn't depend on their welfare. Oh man, that's tough. If you don't need them to stay alive for your sake, they are free to live for themselves. Oh, there's that pressure, right? There's this pressure that children have if you were to say something like that. If I don't live in fear of losing my children, it means I don't love them. That's amazing. Do you treat your children differently, believing that your children are responsible for you and need to be alive for you? Your thoughts can't leave your children alone. Take terror out of your relationship with your children and you have love. Oof, you guys. This one hits hard for me. This one hits really hard because I'm definitely a mama bear. And I don't know why our brains do this, but if we're like putting them to bed or doing whatever task that kind of gives you that absent-mindedness, and your brain just wanders and it thinks the craziest things, like what if my kid got kidnapped, or what if some freak accident happened, and our brains just do that as a system. But it's fear. It's really just fear talking. And so when she says, when we take the terror out of parenting, we have love. And how wise is that? And I notice that when I have more of an approach that is faith-based, like everything's going to work out. My son is healthy. He's well. Look, he's right in front of me. I have nothing to focus on but the present moment. And it just goes to that consciousness. Being conscious and fully invested in the present moment is the key to life, to parenting, to goals, to just everything. So yeah, these are such powerful teachings of Byron Katie. And there's one last thing she says. If I hate someone, I'm mistaking them for me. Okay, let me dive into this. If I hate someone, I'm mistaking them for me. You guys, it is so crazy how much, if you really start to think about the thoughts in your head and how much of them are, a majority of them, right? I've said this on the podcast before, but a majority of our thoughts are negative and repetitive. And these are the things that we notice in other people are so much more true towards ourselves. And notice how true that is. If you were to take like a week and you think about all the judgments you have of other people, it is so much more true when you think about it in reverse towards yourself. And that's why I love the work of Byron Katie so much, is because in her worksheet, she has you judge your neighbor, write it down, ask 4 questions, and then turn it around. And the turnarounds are the most insightful, enlightening, eye-opening, heart-warming parts of the work that she has you do. Because it's so interesting how much we see the world the way we see ourselves. It's insane. It's insane. And it's almost like our blind spot. It's so interesting to think about that way. But we project what we are believing about ourselves. And it's just astounding. So I would love to assign you guys homework. That's what I do as a coach. So if you guys have a estranged relationship, or there's been some drama, some trauma, any type of incident that you're feeling distance with your mother, or your father, I highly recommend doing the following. First, this has been very helpful. First, write a letter to that person. You can decide whether or not you're going to send it to them. I want you to write a letter and just be super judgy. Just judge, like, how dare you do this to me? Taka, taka, taka. I can't believe this. And then once you write that letter, and this is also an exercise from Byron Katie, once you write the letter, then do the reverse. So if I were to say, like, oh, mother, I'm so mad at you for not being there for me. And then a turnaround would be, I'm so grateful for you for being there for me. It's such a healing exercise. Do that, number one. Then number two, I want you to do a ho'oponopono practice for a month or a week, at least a week. But if you want to do amazing things with your relationship with your parents and really heal and feel that peace and love that we all crave, this is the work to do. What you're going to do is say, I love you. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I love you. I forgive you. Thank you. And I like to put on some like yoga-y, spiritual kind of background music. It really helps me to get into that mood. You can do it for as little as 5 minutes to as long as an hour. Like, there's been times where I've done it for like 45 minutes. And it's very, very healing. So do that, number two. And then number three, do a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on your parents. And it's amazing. It is so amazing. I swear, if you do those three things and you do not feel any different, call me. Because there must be some disconnect somewhere. I'm telling you, this work, it will leave you just loving your parents. It will leave you totally baffled at how blind our ego makes us. Ego separates us from our loved ones, creates enemies in our loved ones. It seeks identity at all times. And I just love to understand ego and work with it, really, because we can't be at war with our ego. And yeah, that's really what I have to say. And mothers are such beautiful creatures. They are long-suffering, loving, enduring creatures, and I'm just so grateful for all the women in my life, all the mothers out there, everyone who has been motherly to me. My friends, colleagues, there is so much love around me. I would literally have to be blind not to see it. And I want this same pleasure, this same joy that I have for all of you, my listeners. Anyways, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that this is helpful and transformative for you guys. I have right now going on my 12-month coaching program. We are going to dive deep into all facets of your life: financial, spiritual, emotional, career, all of the above, fitness. And I just like to go deep into those, and I love coaching people. I love seeing their transformations. So if you guys are looking for a change, a restart, a refresh, click the link in the bio. Let's set up a quick call and talk about what your goals are. And I know that I would just be honored to be your coach. So click the link, sign up if you're interested, and I will catch you on the next podcast. Take care, y'all.